Giant stone fists, sanded down horns, vividly red skin, and glowing yellow eyes. At first glance, Hellboy seems easy to understand. He is a demon who punches monsters, but almost every feature of his body raises a deeper question. Why does he constantly grind down his own horns? What exactly is the enormous stone hand attached to his arm? Why do demons call him Anung Un Rama, a name he refuses to accept? And why does a hero who has spent his life protecting humanity appear in prophecies as the creature destined to help destroy it? Hellboy's body is not simply built for combat. It is the product of an ancient history, a demonic bloodline, and a prophecy that began long before his birth. His physical form represents a destiny chosen for him by other beings, but his life is defined by his refusal to surrender to it. Today we are examining the infernal anatomy of Hellboy, what he is, what his body can do, what the right hand of doom truly represents, and why the conflict between his appearance and his choices lies at the heart of Mike Mignola's mythology. Is Hellboy a demon, a half-demon, or something else? Most people would describe Hellboy as a demon, and that answer is understandable. He has red skin, horns, a tail, unusual feet, immense strength, and a face that clearly does not belong to an ordinary human being. But demon is only part of the truth. Hellboy is the child of a human woman named Sarah Hughes and a powerful demon named Azazel, an archduke of hell. That makes him a human-demon hybrid, often described as a cambion. His demonic heritage explains his appearance and many of his physical abilities. Hellboy possesses extraordinary strength, allowing him to fight giants, monsters, and supernatural creatures far larger than himself. He can survive gunshots, explosions, falls, and brutal injuries that would kill an ordinary human. His body also heals faster than a human body, and he ages extremely slowly. Hellboy arrived on Earth as an infant in 1944, yet decades later, he remains physically powerful and appears only moderately older. His human ancestry, however, is equally important. Hellboy is capable of love, guilt, loyalty, compassion, and self-sacrifice. He forms deep relationships, mourns the dead, questions his purpose, and repeatedly chooses to protect people who may never completely accept him. His infernal blood may explain what he looks like, but he does not determine what kind of person he becomes. That distinction is essential. Hellboy's story is not about a naturally evil creature struggling to imitate humanity. It is about a person born into a monstrous legacy who refuses to allow that legacy to define him.
And usher in the apocalypse.
How did Project Ragna Rok bring Hellboy to Earth? Hellboy arrived during the final months of the Second World War. By December 1944, Nazi Germany was losing the conventional war, and in desperation, a secret occult operation turned towards supernatural forces. The project was called Ragna Rok, and its central figure was Grigory Rasputin. In the fictional world of Hellboy, Rasputin survived beyond his historical assassination through the influence of Ogdru Jahad, 7 ancient beings associated with the destruction of the Earth. He persuaded the Nazis to fund a massive occult ritual on Tarmagant Island, off the coast of Scotland. The Nazis believed the operation could provide them with an apocalyptic weapon, powerful enough to reverse the course of the war, but Rasputin's ambition went much further. He intended to awaken the Ogdru Jahad and bring about the destruction of the existing world. The ritual took place on December 23, 1944, but Hellboy did not appear at the ritual site itself. Instead, he materialized at a ruined church in East Bromwich, England, where a group of Allied soldiers and paranormal investigators had gathered after detecting the supernatural disturbance. Among them was Professor Trevor Brutenholm. What appeared before the investigators was not a towering destroyer or an army from hell. It was a small, confused, red-skinned infant with an enormous stone right hand. The soldiers gave him the nickname Hellboy, but Brutenholm did something far more important. He treated the child as a person. Rather than imprisoning Hellboy as a monster or exploiting him as a weapon, Brutenholm became his adoptive father. He raised him with patience, discipline, and affection. That decision changed everything. Project Ragna Rok had brought a potential agent of the apocalypse into the human world, but instead of being raised by the forces that summoned him, Hellboy was raised by someone who taught him that he could make his own choices. The Nazis helped open the door, but Trevor Brutenholm determined who would walk through it. What does the name Anung Un Rama mean? To his friends, he is Hellboy. To many supernatural beings, however, he is known by another name, Anung Un Rama. The name is commonly translated as a phrase resembling, "and upon his brow is set a crown of flame." It refers to Hellboy's prophesied apocalyptic identity. When Hellboy is depicted in the form associated with this destiny, his horns are fully grown and a burning crown appears above his head. He is no longer seen merely as a paranormal investigator. He is presented as the beast of the apocalypse, the being expected to claim power in hell and play a central role in the end of the world. Hellboy does not embrace that identity. He calls himself Hellboy because that is the name connected to his real life. Brutenholm, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, his friends, and the choices he has made. Anung Un Rama represents what prophecy says he must become, while Hellboy represents the person he has chosen to be. That is why his two names matter so much. They are not merely alternative titles. They represent two competing versions of his identity. One was imposed upon him before he could understand it, while the other was built through experience, relationships, and repeated acts of free will. Why does Hellboy file down his horns? Hellboy's horns naturally grow, but rather than allowing them to remain fully formed, he repeatedly files or breaks them down, until only rounded stumps remain on his forehead. On a practical level, the shortened horns make him appear slightly less demonic. Symbolically, however, the act means much more. Fully grown horns are strongly associated with Hellboy's identity as Anung Un Rama. In visions and apocalyptic scenes, they accompany the flaming crown and the image of Hellboy as the ruler or champion expected by the forces of hell. By cutting them down, Hellboy rejects that image. The act does not remove his demonic heritage, and it does not make the prophecy disappear. His horns will grow again, just as the forces attempting to control him will continue to return. That repetition is precisely what makes the gesture powerful. Hellboy cannot permanently erase the circumstances of his birth. He must repeatedly decide what those circumstances mean. Every time he files down his horns, he physically restates the same answer. He will not become what others demand. What is the right hand of doom? The enormous stone object attached to Hellboy's arm is known as the right hand of doom. It is easy to view it as a weapon because Hellboy uses it to smash through walls, destroy supernatural barriers, and deliver devastating blows to monsters. But the hand is far older and more important than Hellboy himself. Long before humanity existed, a group of powerful beings known as the Watchers became involved in the creation of the Ogdru Jahad. One of those Watchers was Anung. Anung's right hand played a central role in both the creation of the Ogdru Jahad and their eventual imprisonment. When the other Watchers destroyed Anung, the hand survived and became an ancient relic connected to the prison of the Seven Dragons. Over time, the hand came into the possession of Hellboy's father, Azazel. Shortly after, Azazel removed the infant's ordinary right hand and replaced it with Anung's stone hand. Hellboy was therefore not naturally born with the right hand of doom. It was grafted onto him. That distinction changes the meaning of his anatomy. The hand is not simply a demonic mutation or an unusually powerful limb. It is an ancient supernatural artifact deliberately attached to a child because others expected that child to serve a particular purpose. Hellboy was physically modified to become part of an apocalyptic design. Why is the right hand so important? The right hand of doom is connected to the imprisonment of the Ogdru Jahad. Because it helped seal them away, it can also be used as the means by which their prison is opened, and their power is released or controlled. That makes the hand far more than an indestructible weapon. It is a key. This is why so many supernatural beings seek Hellboy. Some want him to willingly accept his destiny, while others are willing to manipulate, imprison, or kill him in order to obtain the hand. In the comics, it is even suggested that the hand may continue to function after Hellboy's death. That possibility makes him vulnerable in a disturbing way. His enemies may not need his cooperation. They may only need the artifact attached to it. The hand therefore creates a constant tension. It helps Hellboy protect people by allowing him to defeat creatures, break enchantments, and survive battles that would otherwise overwhelm him. But every time he uses it, he is carrying the object that others believe can help end the world. The same hand that allows him to act as a hero is also the physical symbol of the apocalypse he is expected to unleash. What are the Ogdru Jahad? The Ogdru Jahad are 7 primordial beings, sometimes described as the 7 gods of chaos or the 7 dragons of the apocalypse. They existed before human civilization and are associated with devastation on a cosmic scale. Because of the danger they represented, they were imprisoned beyond the ordinary world. Their offspring and related creatures, known as the Ogdru Hem, appear throughout the Hellboy and BPRD stories as monstrous forces of destruction. Rasputin worships the Ogdru Jahad and seeks to free them. His plan does not depend on Hellboy being naturally cruel or personally eager to destroy humanity. Instead, it depends on Hellboy possessing the one artifact capable of playing a crucial role in their release. That is what makes Hellboy's position so tragic. The apocalypse is not hidden in a distant temple waiting for him to discover it. Its key has been attached to his body since infancy. Hellboy does not have the option of simply walking away from the artifact. He cannot place it in a vault and return to an ordinary life. He carries it into every room, every friendship, and every battle. The danger is not something he owns. It is a part of him. What powers does Hellboy's demonic body give him? Despite his complicated destiny, Hellboy's everyday fighting style is remarkably direct. He punches things, he uses firearms when necessary, but many of his battles ultimately become physical confrontations between Hellboy and whatever supernatural creature has made the mistake of standing in front of him. His strength is far beyond human limits. He can lift, throw, and strike creatures of enormous size. The right hand of doom adds tremendous weight and force to his attacks, but Hellboy is physically powerful even without relying entirely on it. His durability is equally impressive. Hellboy has survived explosions, gunfire, crushing impacts, supernatural attacks, and severe blood loss. He can be hurt, sometimes badly, but his body recovers from injuries that would permanently disable or kill a human being. He also possesses a degree of resistance to heat and supernatural forces, although he is not invulnerable. Magical weapons, powerful monsters, and divine or cursed forces can injure him. His endurance should never be confused with immortality. Hellboy wins many battles not because nothing can harm him, but because he continues fighting after most opponents assume he should be finished. He gets bruised, burned, stabbed, and thrown through walls. He complains, bleeds, and becomes exhausted, but then he stands up again. His body gives him strength. His character determines how long he keeps using it.
Hound of Resurrection.
Does Hellboy age? Hellboy ages far more slowly than an ordinary human. He arrived on Earth as a baby in 1944 and matured rapidly enough to begin working with the BPRD while still relatively young. After reaching adulthood, however, his aging appears to slow dramatically. Decades pass, yet his physical appearance changes only modestly. This extended lifespan reinforces his unusual position between worlds. He can form human relationships, but he may outlive many of the people around him. He can participate in human history while remaining physically connected to a much older supernatural order. His longevity is not merely a useful power. It also isolates him. Hellboy belongs among human beings emotionally, but his body constantly reminds him that he is not entirely one of them. What happens when Hellboy accepts his apocalyptic appearance? At certain moments, Hellboy is shown with his horns fully grown and a crown of flame above his head. These images represent Anung Un Rama, the figure Hell expects him to become. The transformation is not simply a biological response caused by his horns reaching a certain length. The imagery is symbolic and prophetic. It appears when Hellboy approaches, considers, or is forced toward the identity others have designed for him. In Guillermo del Toro's 2004 film, this transformation is presented dramatically. Hellboy's horns grow, his crown appears, and the right hand becomes part of the mechanism that can release the Ogdru Jahad. The comics use the imagery in a broader and more gradual way. Hellboy's apocalyptic form is connected to prophecy, infernal authority, and the possibility that he may claim power over Hell. But appearance is not acceptance. Hellboy may look like the beast of the apocalypse without surrendering his conscience. That contrast is one of the defining images of the character, a figure who looks exactly like the monster prophecy promised, yet continues to refuse the role.
Well, let's see. There was that moment when I had the train out.
How did Brutenholm and the BPRD shape Hellboy? Hellboy's body came from his biological parents and the forces of hell, but his values came from the people who raised him. Professor Trevor Brutenholm gave Hellboy more than shelter. He gave him a moral foundation and a genuine family relationship. Brutenholm did not deny that Hellboy was supernatural, nor did he pretend that the danger surrounding him was insignificant, but he refused to treat the child as though his future had already been decided. Later, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense gave Hellboy a place where his unusual abilities could be used to protect others. Through the BPRD, he formed relationships with figures such as Liz Sherman and Abe Sapien. Like Hellboy, they were outsiders shaped by supernatural circumstances they did not choose. Together they became something resembling a family. This upbringing did not magically remove Hellboy's darker possibilities. It gave him alternatives. When demons told him that blood determined loyalty, Brutenholm had already taught him otherwise. When a prophecy demanded obedience, Hellboy had already experienced free will. When hell offered him a throne, he knew what it meant to belong somewhere without ruling it. Hellboy can resist Anung Un Rama because other people first allowed him to become Hellboy. How is Hellboy connected to King Arthur? Hellboy's human ancestry carries its own prophecy. Through his mother, Sarah Hughes, Hellboy is revealed to be a descendant of King Arthur. That bloodline gives him a legitimate claim to the throne of England and connects him to Excalibur. This creates a striking contrast. Through his demonic father, Hellboy is expected to become a ruler of hell and an agent of the apocalypse. Through his human mother, he inherits the possibility of becoming a heroic king. But Hellboy is uncomfortable with both roles. He does not want a throne simply because blood or prophecy says it belongs to him. Whether the throne is in hell or England, it still represents an identity chosen for him by someone else. In the Wild Hunt, the Storm, and the Fury, Hellboy can no longer avoid the consequences of his Arthurian heritage. England faces destruction, and he is forced to confront Nimue, the Blood Queen. He takes up Excalibur and briefly commands the dead armies associated with Britain's legendary past. But the story does not become a simple tale of Hellboy accepting kingship. He ultimately fights for humanity without becoming the conventional ruler others expect. His actions lead to victory, but they also lead to his death. Hellboy's Arthurian destiny therefore mirrors his Infernal one. Both offer him power, both demand that he become a symbol, and both force him to decide whether fulfilling part of a prophecy means surrendering his identity to it. What happens after Hellboy dies? Hellboy's death in the Fury does not end his story. It leads directly into Hellboy in Hell. After death, Hellboy awakens in Hell, still recognizable as himself, and still carrying the right hand of doom. The setting changes, but the central conflict remains. Hell is a ruined kingdom filled with demons, ghosts, fallen rulers, and remnants of ancient power. Many of its inhabitants view Hellboy as the heir they have been expecting. He is offered authority, encounters figures tied to his bloodline and destiny, and is repeatedly confronted with the identity of Anung Un Rama. But even in the realm that supposedly belongs to him, Hellboy resists becoming its king. His rejection of Hell's throne is especially significant because he can no longer attribute his refusal simply to loyalty toward the human world. He is dead. He stands inside the kingdom he was allegedly born to rule, and he still says no. Hellboy in Hell demonstrates that his resistance was never merely situational. It is a part of who he is. His body may be demonic, his blood may be royal, and his hand may be apocalyptic, but his soul remains his own. Does Hellboy prevent the apocalypse? The answer is complicated. Hellboy repeatedly prevents particular versions of the apocalypse. He refuses Rasputin, rejects Hell's throne, and resists those who want to use the right hand of doom. But the larger Hellboy and BPRD saga eventually reaches a devastating end-of-the-world scenario. The Ogdru Jahad, the Ogdru Hem, and other forces of destruction reshape the planet. Much of humanity is lost and the old world ends. Hellboy's defiance does not mean that every prophecy simply disappears. Instead, it changes how those prophecies are fulfilled and what comes afterward. In the conclusion of the larger saga, Hellboy's role becomes part of both destruction and renewal. The right hand of doom remains connected to world-changing events, but Hellboy does not become the triumphant ruler imagined by the demons who sought to control him. The world ends and another begins. This makes the story more complex than a simple victory of free will over fate. Hellboy cannot prevent every consequence of the forces that created him, but he can determine whose interests he serves, and what kind of world follows, and whether prophecy gets to define the meaning of his actions. How do the comics and films change Hellboy? Different adaptations emphasize different parts of Hellboy's identity. In Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy from 2004 and Hellboy 2: The Golden Army from 2008, Ron Perlman plays a more emotionally youthful version of the character. This Hellboy longs for acceptance. His relationship with Liz Sherman is central, and his desire to live openly among human beings drives much of the emotional conflict. The first film places strong emphasis on Rasputin, the Ogdru Jahad, and the Right Hand of Doom as a literal key. Hellboy comes close to accepting his apocalyptic identity before choosing Liz and humanity instead. Del Toro's films therefore frame Hellboy as a visibly monstrous being who deeply wants a human life. The 2019 film starring David Harbour draws heavily from storylines invoking the Wild Hunt, Nimue, Excalibur, and Hellboy's Arthurian ancestry. It presents a more violent and overtly apocalyptic version of Hellboy's possible future. The image of Hellboy with full horns, a flaming crown, and Excalibur is used to show what could happen if he accepts his destructive destiny. However, the film combines and alters numerous comic storylines, so it should not be treated as an exact adaptation of Mignola's continuity. The comics develop Hellboy's identity over decades. Mike Mignola reveals his origins slowly, allowing the meaning of his horns, name, ancestry, and stone hand to expand over time. The comics Hellboy is generally more reserved and world-weary than his film counterparts. He is less focused on becoming human and more focused on being left alone to do what he believes is right. His tragedy is not that he looks like a monster. It is that everyone keeps insisting his appearance must determine his purpose. Why is Hellboy's anatomy really about destiny and choice? Every major part of Hellboy's body carries a meaning imposed upon him. His red skin identifies him as demonic. His horns connect him to the beast of the apocalypse. His blood ties him to both an Archduke of Hell and the lineage of King Arthur. The right hand of doom makes him physically inseparable from an ancient mechanism of destruction. Even his true name describes the figure prophecy expects to see. On paper, Hellboy's destiny appears unavoidable, but anatomy is not morality. A body can carry history without obeying it. Hellboy spends his life proving that power does not determine purpose. The right hand of doom can open the way to destruction, but Hellboy uses it to defend people. His horns can form the crown of Anung Un Rama, but he files them down. His blood may entitle him to thrones, but he repeatedly refuses to rule simply because others say he must. He cannot change where he came from, but he can change what happens next. That is why Hellboy remains such a compelling character. He is not inspiring because destiny has no influence over him. Destiny follows him everywhere. It is attached to his arm, written into his blood, and reflected in every creature that recognizes his true name. He is inspiring because he must resist it repeatedly. There is no single moment when Hellboy defeats fate forever. There is only the next decision, and then another after that. Every time the world tells him what he is, Hellboy answers by showing it who he has chosen to become. Hellboy was born from a union between a human and a demon. He was brought to Earth through a Nazi occult ritual. He was given the name Anung Un Rama and marked as a possible beast of the apocalypse. His ordinary right hand was replaced with the ancient right hand of doom, an artifact linked to the creation, imprisonment, and potential release of the Ogdru Jahad. His body appears to make the conclusion inevitable, but Hellboy refuses inevitability. Instead of commanding the armies of hell, he hunts monsters. Instead of accepting a crown of flame, he cuts down his horns. Instead of using the right hand of doom to end the world, he uses it to protect the people who gave him a home. Hellboy's story is not simply about a demon who wants to become human. It is about a person confronting the idea that blood, anatomy, and prophecy have the right to determine his identity. Again and again, Hellboy gives the same answer: they do not. His body may have been prepared for the apocalypse, but his life belongs to him. What do you think is the most fascinating part of Hellboy's anatomy? His demonic heritage, his horns, his Arturian bloodline, or the right hand of doom? Tell us in the comments and let us know which character we should examine next. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.